Hi there, this is Rich Fritzky. I'm delighted to welcome you to the Rich Fritzky Show. We're going to have a lot to talk about in days and weeks and months ahead. I'll talk to you about myself, my life, the great issues of our day, the things that are on your mind, and maybe, just maybe, the things that should be on all of our minds. In the first few episodes of this show, I'm just going to talk to you about certain values, sacrifice, courage, duty. Today we're going to begin with the simple word sacrifice. Just where do such men come from? Robert E. Lee asked on July 3rd, 1863. Those who willingly lay down their lives for another. There was Good Friday and the cross and Father, forgive them. In the Old Testament, in all faiths, there are legends and legions, heroines and heroes. In the Old Testament, 200 years ago, Thomas Jefferson wrote about the tree of liberty, the blood of patriots and tyrants, and eternal vigilance. There was that wonderful Charles Dickens story, A Tale of Two Cities, that ended with, "'Tis a far, far better thing that I do now than I have ever done before. 'Tis a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known." There are countless stories throughout history in which ordinary people take the hit for someone else. Ordinary people who change the world. The firemen and police officers of September 11th, 2001, who went into the Trade Center buildings as everyone else rushed out. The co-workers who just happened to stay to help others. The elevator technician who thought he might be able to assist. After all, there would be problems with the elevators, all of whom laid down their lives. And the soldiers, always, there are the soldiers, our soldiers, sometimes right and sometimes wrong, doing their duty, fighting for the cause, making the world safe for democracy, fighting the war to end all wars, leading the revolution, liberating the oppressed, beating back terrorism across the millenniums, the centuries, the years, the races, the faiths. It has always been so, for there has been war always. And young boys who would be men die, and old men who would be boys die. And I am overcome by it all. I think of Bastogne and the Black Forest, and the endless array of acts of daring and courage in the service of life and goodness throughout the course of human history. And there is always for me the third day at Gettysburg, and the answer whose question never ceases, Lee's question: how, why, where could such men have come from? You suspend the right and wrong, the decision itself, the seeming madness, the human slaughter, and simply focus upon the action itself, the poignancy of a most incredible human drama. You hear the words of the many Union soldiers and officers who watched in amazement, even awe. How, why? They asked it even then, as it unfolded before them, and you cannot help but be overcome. In the face of torturous fire, those poor boys in gray kept dressing on each other, and they kept going forward. A sacrifice that Lincoln said we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow. Years removed from us and haunting us still. It was the extreme, to be sure, but the haunting connection remains clear. A life well lived, after all, has to be, cannot help but be, a life lived for others. Firemen, cops, and some ordinary citizens rushed into the World Trade Center to help folks they did not know. They gave their own last full measure. And somewhere today, someone has just rushed in somewhere to help someone when the rest of the world may have seemed to be rushing out. It could be a total stranger risking his or her life to save another trapped in a car fire on Route 80, or one of those incidents where some kid slips through the ice and another risks all for that young boy or girl, or the neighbor who runs into the burning house next door because a baby in a crib is still on the second floor. Some defer their dreams to help give life to the dreams of others. Some sit up at night, night after night, serving and loving the one with dementia without receiving or asking for anything in return. Still others work 3 jobs to feed their family. This is the very stuff that gave my own Maggie strength enough for 12. For sacrifice is about giving more than one takes, about holding up the other first. After 15 months of exile in a hospital and rehab, and after I had lost both legs, all but the stub of one finger, and the full use of all of my remaining joints, I was finally going to return home, absolutely and forever disabled, to the full-time care of my wife, Maggie. But if that weren't enough, it struck me about a week before my long-awaited homecoming that I also was returning to the world with a colostomy bag in tow, and that it too would be my poor wife's to deal with. So I told her, when you said I do, it had nothing to do with this. Her firm and certain response, free of any doubt whatsoever, was simply, oh, yes, it did. Yes, sacrifice comes in many different forms and guises. Every day, here and there, in both sublime and simple ways, it happens. And then, too, somewhere else, someone is weeping because they fear that they may have given all that they possibly can. The center of that field at Gettysburg, that 1 mile stretch between Seminary and Cemetery Ridges, is one of those places that reminds you of just how much more you ought to want to give. In fact, everywhere you turn there, you are reminded that you have miles yet to go and promises to keep, whether you want to hear it or not. You are reminded there that God is not done with you yet, and you are overcome. We know without question that Robert E. Lee strode the outskirts of Spangler's Woods as broken men recrossed the desolate field and returned to the safety of their own lines around 4 p.m. on the afternoon of that July 3rd day. To all he could reach, he spoke words of comfort and said that the failure was all his. He tried to take their suffering unto himself. He could do no such thing. He couldn't possibly do it. But he tried again and again. He tried. And when you let yourself imagine what it must have been like, you are once again overcome. In the waning years of his life at Lexington, Virginia, it is said that a young woman asked him what advice he had to offer someone who simply wanted to lead a good life. What was his prescription for the life worth living? It is said that he cupped her hand in both of his looked her in the eyes, and softly said, "Deny yourself. Nothing more and nothing less. Deny yourself. Sacrifice. Gettysburg. The third day. What must needs come. Ground zero. And the unsung hero in your life. Every single action ever taken that puts the other first. Sacrifice. All pieces or components of the same story. One we share with those who marched across a field of rye, as well as the man who sent them across it on a hot summer's afternoon in July of 1863. As they die to make men holy, let us die to make men free. Sacrifice. Thank you. It's been good being with you, and I hope that you'll join me the next time around. Take care. Have a great week.